Excuse me. I think there's been a mistake. This is first class.
We are aware.
Excuse me, I think there's been a mistake. The woman in 2A was leaning across the aisle, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at us like we were stains on her expensive blouse. This is first class. My wife, Natalie, didn't look up from her book, but I saw her hand tighten on the spine. We're aware, I said. I just mean, the woman glanced at her husband, then back at us. The economy cabin is through that curtain if you're confused about your seats. We're not confused. Well, she let out a small laugh, the kind designed to sound polite while being anything but. It's just that first-class tickets are quite expensive, and the airline does make mistakes sometimes. That's how it started. Not with a slur. Not with something I could point to and say, there, that's racism. Just a suggestion. A helpful observation. A woman trying to correct what she assumed was an error in the universe. Because in her universe, people who looked like me and Natalie didn't sit in seats like these. My name is David. I've been a software engineer for 22 years, built my first company at 29, sold it at 41 for more money than my parents made in their combined lifetimes. Natalie is a cardiothoracic surgeon, top of her field. She saved more lives than most people will ever touch. Together, we've worked harder than anyone in that first-class cabin could imagine. But none of that was visible. All they could see was our skin. We were flying from Atlanta to Seattle. A medical conference for Natalie, a tech summit for me. We decided to make a trip of it, a few days of work, a few days exploring the Pacific Northwest. First class wasn't something we did often, but it was our 20th anniversary. And after 2 decades of building, sacrificing, and grinding, we'd learned to stop apologizing for enjoying what we'd earned. The flight attendant came by before takeoff. Blonde, young, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Can I see your boarding passes? Natalie looked up. You didn't ask anyone else. It's just procedure, ma'am. You walked right past the couple in row 1. The flight attendant's smile flickered. I'm just trying to help. There's been some confusion with seating assignments today. There was no confusion. We both knew it. She knew it. But we were in a metal tube about to be sealed shut for 5 hours, and making a scene felt like giving them exactly what they expected. So Natalie handed over the passes. The flight attendant looked at them, then at us, then at the passes again. These are correct. We know. She handed them back without another word. I wish I could tell you that was the end of it. That she apologized, that the woman in 2A looked embarrassed, that everyone went back to their champagne and pretended nothing had happened. But that's not how these things work. The woman in 2A wasn't satisfied. I could feel her watching us, whispering to her husband, glancing over every few minutes like she was waiting for us to reveal ourselves as imposters. And then, about 20 minutes into the flight, she pressed the call button. The same flight attendant appeared. I need to speak with someone in charge, the woman said, loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. I don't feel comfortable. Ma'am. Those people, she didn't point this time, didn't have to. I don't know how they got those seats, but something isn't right. I've been flying first class for 15 years and I've never seen. She stopped herself, but everyone heard what she didn't say. Natalie closed her book. Slowly, deliberately, and I recognized that motion. It was the same thing she did before walking into a surgery that everyone said was impossible. The calm before she proved them wrong. Let me understand, Natalie said. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. You want this airline to remove us from seats we paid for because you don't believe we could afford them because of how we look. The woman's face reddened. That's not what That's exactly what you said. You just used different words. The cabin was silent. Every passenger watching. Every ear tuned in. And for a moment, I saw something flash across the woman's face. Not shame. Fear. The fear of being seen. The flight attendant shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we can resolve this quietly. If you'd like, I can check with the gate agent. There's nothing to check, I said. We have our tickets, we have our seats. The only issue here is her assumption that we don't belong. Sir, I understand, but for the comfort of all passengers. The comfort of all passengers, Natalie leaned forward. Or the comfort of passengers who look like her. The flight attendant didn't answer. She just mumbled something about getting the head flight attendant and disappeared behind the curtain. We waited. The woman in 2A had turned to face forward, her neck stiff, her husband suddenly very interested in the safety card. But I could feel the tension in the cabin. The other passengers weren't looking at us. They were looking at their hands, their phones, anywhere else. No one said a word. No one defended us. No one told the woman she was out of line. Just silence. The silence of people who didn't want to get involved. 3 minutes passed. Then 5. And then the curtain parted. But it wasn't the head flight attendant. It was the captain. He was a tall man, silver hair, the kind of presence that filled a room. He walked directly to our row. Stopped. And then did something I wasn't expecting. He smiled. Dr. Natalie Thompson. Natalie blinked. Yes. I thought that was you. I'm Captain Richard Hayes. My daughter was one of your patients. 4 years ago, hole in her heart. They said she wouldn't make it to her 5th birthday. Natalie's expression softened. Emily, I remember Emily. She just turned 9 last month, because of you. The cabin had gone completely still. Captain Hayes turned to face the passengers. This woman saved my daughter's life. She's one of the most respected surgeons in the country. And her husband, he looked at me, if I'm not mistaken, is David Thompson, the David Thompson, founder of Apex Technologies. I didn't confirm or deny. I didn't need to. He turned toward the woman in 2A. You wanted to have them removed. She couldn't speak. Her husband was staring at the floor like he wanted it to swallow him whole. I want to make something very clear, Captain Hayes said. These 2 passengers have more right to be in this cabin than anyone else on this aircraft, including me. He paused. And if anyone has a problem with that, I'll be happy to arrange alternative transportation at our next stop, on your own dime. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. And then Captain Hayes did something else. He turned to the flight attendant, who had asked for our boarding passes. Jennifer, did you verify their tickets because of protocol, or because of something else? Her face went pale. There were concerns about. Concerns from whom? She couldn't answer. I want an incident report on my desk before we land, and I want you to personally apologize to Dr. and Mr. Thompson. Now. The apology was mechanical. Forced. The kind of apology that isn't really sorry, just sorry for getting caught. But I didn't need her to mean it. I needed her to remember this moment every time she looked at a passenger and made an assumption. Captain Hayes shook both our hands before returning to the cockpit. Thank you, he said quietly to Natalie. For Emily, for everything. How is she doing? She wants to be a doctor, just like you. After he left, the cabin remained silent. The woman in 2A didn't speak for the rest of the flight. Neither did anyone else. But something had shifted. I could feel it. The other passengers wouldn't make eye contact with us. Not out of hostility. Out of shame. They had watched us be accused. They had said nothing. And now they had to sit with that for 4 more hours. Natalie put her book down somewhere over Colorado. She looked at me with that expression I knew so well. The one that said everything she wouldn't say out loud. You okay? I asked. I'm tired, David. I know. Not tired like sleep, tired like carrying. I understood. Because I carried it too. The thing about moments like these is that they don't start on airplanes. They start in childhood. In the first time someone follows you in a store. The first time a teacher assumes you're in the wrong classroom. The first time someone crosses the street when they see you coming. They accumulate, layer by layer, year by year, until you're sitting in first class, a seat you earned, a seat you paid for, and someone still looks at you like you stole something. Natalie and I met in college. She was pre-med, I was computer science. We were two black kids at a school where we could count the other black students on our fingers. We learned early how to carry ourselves, how to speak carefully, how to dress precisely, how to be twice as good for half the recognition. We thought success would change things. We thought if we worked hard enough, achieved enough, accumulated enough, we'd finally earn the benefit of the doubt. But that's not how it works. Because the doubt isn't about what you've done. It's about what you are. The conference in Seattle was excellent. Natalie was keynote speaker on day 2, standing ovation. I sat in the audience and watched my wife command a room of 500 surgeons, researchers, and medical directors. And I thought about that woman on the plane. Wondered if she knew. Wondered if she'd ever know. The flight home was quieter. Different crew, different passengers. We sat in our first-class seats without incident. No questions, no stares, no suggestions that we'd made a mistake. Just silence. Normal, boring, unremarkable silence. But that's the thing about these experiences. The good flights don't erase the bad ones. The respectful treatment doesn't cancel out the disrespectful treatment. It all accumulates. And you carry it with you. Every time. 2 weeks after we got home, I received an email. From the airline. Apparently, Captain Hayes had filed a formal complaint on our behalf. The flight attendant had been suspended pending review. The airline was offering us lifetime platinum status and a personal apology from their CEO. I showed the email to Natalie. She read it, set down her phone. "Do you feel better?" she asked. "No. Me neither." Because the status didn't fix anything. The apology didn't undo the humiliation. The suspension didn't change the fact that it happened in the first place. What would have happened if Captain Hayes hadn't recognized Natalie? What if his daughter hadn't been her patient? What if we were just two black people in first class, without a famous name or a visible accomplishment? I'll tell you what would have happened. Nothing. They would have verified our tickets again and moved on. The woman in 2A would have spent the flight convinced she was right. The other passengers would have continued avoiding eye contact. And we would have landed in Seattle, carrying one more layer of weight. One more memory of being made to feel like intruders in our own lives. That's the part people don't understand. They think racism is burning crosses and slurs. And yes, it's that too. But mostly it's this. The quiet assumptions. The polite questions. The suggestions that maybe you're confused about where you belong. It's exhausting. And it never stops. A month later, I was at a tech conference. Networking session. The kind where everyone has a name tag and a drink and is trying to seem more important than they are. A man approached me. White, mid-50s, expensive suit. He glanced at my name tag. David Thompson, that name sounds familiar. I founded Apex Technologies. His eyebrows rose. Wait, you're that David Thompson. Is there another one? He laughed, too loud, too long. I just didn't expect, I pictured someone. He stopped himself. But I heard it anyway. You pictured someone who didn't look like me. I smiled. The smile I've perfected over 47 years. The smile that says, I'm not angry, I'm not threatening, I'm not what you expected, but I'm going to make this comfortable for you anyway. The smile that costs a little piece of my soul every time I use it. I walked away from that conversation. Found a quiet corner. Called Natalie. "How's the conference?" she asked. "Same as always." "That bad? That predictable?" She laughed. That laugh I fell in love with 23 years ago. The laugh that says, "I know, I'm carrying it too, but we're carrying it together." Here's what I've learned. You can't achieve your way out of prejudice. You can't earn your way out of assumptions. You can't buy enough first-class tickets to make people see you as fully human. But you can refuse to shrink. You can refuse to apologize for the space you occupy. You can look someone in the eye when they try to make you feel small and say, "I belong here." Not because you have a famous name. Not because a captain recognizes you. Not because of what you've accomplished. But because you're a human being. And that should be enough. The woman in 2A probably tells that story differently. She probably says she was misunderstood. That she didn't mean it that way. That everyone's too sensitive these days. But here's what she'll never understand. She's not the first. She's one of thousands. Thousands of small moments that tell us we don't belong. Thousands of suggestions that we're in the wrong place. Thousands of quiet cruelties that accumulate into something heavier than she'll ever carry. And still we fly. Still we sit in first class. Still we walk into rooms where nobody expects us. Because the alternative is letting them win. And we've worked too hard for that. I think about Captain Hayes sometimes. Not just what he did, but why. He defended us because his daughter was alive. Because Natalie had earned his gratitude. Because he had a personal reason to see us as human. But what about everyone else? What about the passengers who watched silently? What about Jennifer, the flight attendant who asked for our boarding passes? What about all the people who need a reason to treat us with dignity? Why isn't our humanity enough? I don't have an answer, but I know I'll keep asking the question. On every flight, in every conference room, in every space where someone looks at me and calculates whether I belong. Natalie finished a surgery last week. 13 hours. A heart that everyone said was beyond saving. The patient is home now, with his family, with a future. Because my wife refused to accept impossible. And yesterday, we booked another flight. First class. Because we've earned it. Because we refuse to shrink. Because no matter how many women in 2A try to make us feel like intruders, this is our life. And we're not apologizing for it. So here's what I want you to take from this. If you've ever been the person questioned, doubted, quietly pushed aside, you're not alone. If you've ever been the person who stayed silent while someone else was treated unfairly, remember how that silence felt. And if you've ever looked at someone and made an assumption based on what you saw instead of who they are, maybe this is the moment to ask yourself why. The plane landed in Seattle that day without further incident. We collected our bags, walked through the terminal, stepped into our lives. But I still think about that cabin, about all those passengers who said nothing, about what would have happened without Captain Hayes, about how many people never get that moment of vindication. They just land, carrying one more layer, one more memory, one more quiet reminder that some people will never see them as fully human. Until that changes, we keep flying. We keep sitting in seats we've earned. We keep taking up space. Because our presence is the protest. And our persistence is the proof. This is Reality Voice. If this story hit somewhere familiar, somewhere tired, you're probably meant to be here. Tell me in the comments, when's the last time someone made you feel like you didn't belong? And if you're still listening, still carrying, still refusing to shrink, subscribe. Because these are the stories we live every day. The ones most people don't see. The ones that need to be told. How do people treat you when they don't know your name?